She's back, bitches! Welcome back, me. I just moved from Southern California to Northern California. It was terrible. I'll make another video on that. The moving process was, how you say, actual hell. But I'm back and I'm feeling inspired, and I'm gonna make a video right now on three main takeaways from my last retreat, from hosting it and just being a part of it. So, number one is that you do not need to talk to be engaged in community. So, I think especially as people pleasers, we're so used to meshing with people. A common pattern I see is oversharing. We're like, hi, my name's Callie and this is my trauma. And just a lot of oversharing, a lack of organic growth. There's the stats of this is the amount of time it takes to amount of hours spent with someone to be considered a friend and then a best friend. I think it's really easy to get caught up fawning. There's the sense of urgency, the sense of and it can end up in word vomit. It can end up in oversharing and just yeah. And I think it's feels so good to know you actually don't need to talk at all to have community. At the retreat that I just held in June, we did two things that you didn't need to talk at all for to feel connected. The first one was there was a river on site, and the river was really loud. So if you're by the river, which most of us spent most of the day relaxing by the river or in the river or on the rocks by the river, you couldn't hear someone anyway. The river was so loud that if someone was next to you talking, they kind of had to be borderline shouting for you to hear them. And so because of that, we just didn't really talk very much by the river, but we were just there in proximity to each other, just enjoying the nature, reading. I was doing embroidery, listening to music, sunbathing, and we were all just having our own little moments, but in proximity to each other. And it just felt so beautiful and supportive, and something about just being with women is just amazing. And so that was really, really, really lovely. And then another thing was dancing. Dancing, you don't need to talk. I have a friend that hosts silent discos, and I experience this every time I go to them, where you are making eye contact with people, you're dancing with people, but you're not talking to them, but there's still this element of connection. And so I really loved that, and I'm kind of thinking of ways where that will either happen organically, or I can facilitate something like that in Bali when we go next year. If you want to come, Bali Retreat in June 2025. There's still 4 early bird spots. Number 2 is that this retreat, this last one I did in June, was called Journey to Paradise, and it was really focused on orienting towards pleasure and towards what feels good in your body. So my background is tantra yoga, and that's I come from just the yoga space in general, and I think there's this general in the new age kind of world, there's this general agreement that bigger is better, and catharsis is a good thing, right? Because we want catharsis, we go to these breathworks, we have these big releases, people are crying, you're da da da, and in the moment it feels really good. And I can make a whole other video on that, why that feels good. It's because it's a really intense experience. Comment if you are interested in that. But basically, oftentimes these experiences are actually overwhelming for the body. So my takeaway from the retreat is that our bodies can usually only experience so much sensation at one time before we dissociate. That includes sadness, anger, and pleasure and joy. And so a lot of times we think, oh, I want to get to that orgasmic state. I want to get to that point of joy where I'm just overflowing. But really, our bodies probably can't handle that. We want to find those little bite-sized moments. A lot of the retreat was orienting towards what feels good and in what capacity it feels good for you. So we might think oh, it's good for me to go sit by the river and just take in the majesty of nature. But that might be too much at once. And so it's how can I sit by the river and then turn towards my book and orient towards my book. Okay, that feels good. Oh, there's something on this rock. Oh, there's this flower that looks pretty. Okay, now I'm orienting back towards the view, and just like taking it in these like slow, titrated, bite-sized moments, because otherwise it's like, if it's too much joy or pleasure, it's gonna feel overwhelming and you might dissociate, and that's okay. But how can we build our body's capacity for these moments in like very small moments? We call them glimmers. My favorite glimmers from the retreat were noticing the sunlight on my face. There was these like rocks near the river, and they would like get warmed by the sun, and just like sitting on the rocks that were like radiating heat, just like looking at the river that was like this like cold, refreshing, clear, beautiful water, and just watching it flow and watching the sunlight like dance off of the flow of water. I mean, it's really those little moments of like, even just as I think about it, I feel that feeling of softness. And you can even notice like, what are your glimmers? Like, what are those little moments in your day where you're like drinking your coffee, or that first sip of coffee, or when you like see someone, like your family member's face like light up, or you're looking at your dog taking a nap and you just feel those little moments of like love. Finally, number 3 was the resource of time. This is a term from somatic experiencing. The idea is that when we experience some kind of traumatic event, the resource of time is usually not there. Usually something happens fast, it happens without our consent, and it feels like there's not enough time to process. And that's why a lot of times in somatic experiencing sessions, sometimes just slowing down, like when you are doing a somatic session with someone and you just bring in the element of time, that's to say you just slow things down. You go through the event slower. You allow the body to process as it's recalling the event, like step by step, moment by moment, instead of the whole thing all at once. That alone is just reparative. And then on like a more macro level of like the level of life, a lot of times we move through our day feeling like we don't have this resource of time. And if you even just think right now, like, I have time, I have enough time, I have plenty of time, like that feels really good in my body. And so knowing that, we purposely did not put a lot on the schedule. So the days we had, in the mornings, we had a yoga session. In the evenings, we had a somatic session. Obviously, the meals were, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But other than that, we did not put anything on the schedule. I think just having time, it's like not like, oh, having time so you can rest, having time so you can do this. It's like literally just having time to do whatever you want to do, to tend to your body, to say, oh, I'm feeling, okay, have time. I'm feeling tired, I'm gonna go lay down. Or I'm feeling energized, I'm gonna go for a swim. But just having that resource of time is like, that alone, amazing. These are things that I hope to bring into my next retreat as well. I think these are all elements that kind of just happen organically, especially just the community and because you're in proximity. And I love how organic community feels on retreats. If you're interested in coming to Bali with me next year, we have spots left. Like I said, we have spots left. We do have only 4 spots left though of the early bird. So here's some information about the Bali Retreat. I'm going to link the website below so you can get more information. But it's going to be, these retreats are truly, really special and just times for you to slow down. This last retreat I did was more focused on like pleasure and feeling good and orienting towards safety. This next retreat will be more like my signature work of inner villain work, of fawning, of boundaries, and like nervous system support. We'll also be doing yoga every day as well. So it's going to be really beautiful. And if you have any questions, you can email me at the email below as well. And thank you for watching.